The Home Office was warned repeatedly that migrants on an RAF basis may not save money. We're going to read into this more from this exclusive from My News, you guys. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here with an exclusive from My News with the headline of the Home Office was warned repeatedly that migrants on the RFF basis may not save money. Officials said the scheme would slash soaring hotel costs, but communications revealed doubts for a raise. So guys, just before I give my initial thoughts, if you can hit the like button and share it across social media so others are notified of this video. So one of the cruxes of one of the main issues that many people have with not just the fact that we have a huge influx of migrants and asylum seekers in the country that we're having to deal with, but there is also the cost that comes to it. Now, whether or not it is saving more or less money, we're not 100%, never 100% sure with these. These are obviously estimates. And it is only whatever the Home Office chooses to share in terms of costs, of how much they are cost, that we know whether to be true or not. One thing we do know is that having them in the barge or in certain bases may cost more or may cost less. The biggest issue that I have with it is actually the processing of them. We have a situation that we've talked numerous times about. They're not dealing with the issue. They're not dealing with the backlog. They're not clearing the numbers. Now, it's whether or not their asylum application has been accepted or being rejected, whichever the two. There's not been enough process in being done about it. But this is also the Conservatives' own doing as well. They have caused this situation because they've slashed the issue, slashed the amount of workers within the Home Office itself. There's not enough workers in the civil service to clear the backlog. Now, obviously, some people will argue, well, they have brought more people in. Well, it's still nowhere. Some argue that they have brought more in, but I would say that there's nowhere near enough of it. It's not being dealt with. And we have also another situation that we have, like to remind people as well, is that these people can't work. These people who are in hotels, barges, RAF, whatever it is, they can't work until they're processed. Until they're processed, their application is accepted. They can't work. They can't do anything. So, my question I'd like to put to some of you in the comment section down below: if they could work to pay to be in where they are, would you prefer that, or would you prefer your taxpayer money going towards it? Because the Conservative government took away the rights for these people to work in the UK until their asylum application was processed. So you have a situation here where a lot of taxpayer money is being paid for them to be in the situation that we're in. But you could reduce that cost if they could actually contribute to the economy. I think that's worth putting in there as well. But the perception that I have is obviously that the Home Office and the government don't really care about taxpayer money going down the drain, because if they generally did, they'd be doing more to stop the boats, stopping people crossing the channel in much better ways than the ways that they are handling this. You know, this whole Rwanda scheme's not going to work. We know it's not going to work. But obviously, the topic of this article is about whether or not is putting them on an RAF base actually cheaper or not. So let's see what the I exclusive actually has to say on it, guys. So ministers were repeatedly warned that there was a significant risk that housing migrants at former military barracks instead of hotels would not cut costs as ministers claimed, the I can reveal. So senior Home Office officials raised concerns over the cost and feasibility of using temporary modular accommodations for asylum seekers at the MDP Wethersfield in Essex and RAF Scampton in Lincolnshire, memos seen by the Eye has shown. The government insisted the scheme would slash soaring hotel costs for migrants, but communications sent on the eve of its announcement will show doubt for a raise over whether the flagship policy would be cheaper. Okay, so according to memos seen by the Eye, they're saying it's not going to make too much of a difference then. So there's obviously lots of questions about it as well. The memos obtained by the Eye form part of the Home Office legal case referred to a High Court in judicial review into using Wethersfield as a migrant accommodation. So we've covered numerous stories here on the channel as well, from whether it's from the Eye or from other sources, about whether or not some of these bases are actually suitable accommodation for them. And the reason why we've had them is because there have been some instances occurring on some of these bases, and while whether or not they're true or not, these stories would not be coming out if there wasn't some significant truth here to the way they're being handled and treated, migrants on some of these bases by a third party, by the way, as well, because the Home Office and the government are actually paying a third party to look after migrants. And one of the things that I've been concerned about these so-called third parties that have been looking after them is they get paid a shed ton of money by the government, and the suspicion is that they're doing the absolute bare minimum on looking after these migrants in order to make a profit. Does that sound familiar to you? On the 24th of March last year, days before the government announced its plans to use ex-military sites, a Home Office memo on Wethersfield said the accounting officer will need to accept that there is a risk that the site could not meet the FAM value for money. The memo, written for a senior official and described the final advice, said, "I would advise ministers that the value for money case is marginal and that the risks to delivery are significant." So the case was marginal. So on the 29th of March 2023, as the government announced Wethersfield and Scampton would be used as migrant housing, the then Immigration Minister Robert Jenrick said, "The Home Secretary and I have been clear that using expensive hotels for asylum seekers is wholly unacceptable. Delivering accommodation on surplus military sites will provide cheaper and more orderly, suitable accommodation than those arriving on boats." But there was a question about whether there was just literally a question here about it may not meet value for money. So this sounds to me, at this time, at the time of when they announced this, it sounds like just to make people believe that, yeah, we're going to save money and crack down on. It just seems like rhetoric talk there, as opposed to actually, dealing with it. Just it seems like more of a distraction rather than actually wanting to deal with it. In the comments, the then Deputy Prime Minister Dominic Raab said, "We will remove the then asylum seekers from hotels, come up with a whole range of cheaper but humane forms of accommodation." According to the memo, cost assumptions for Wethersfield are based on an 85% occupation rate of 1,700 residents, 500 of them in temporary units. Now, the Home Office has refused to confirm that if the figure had been reached or what the actual costs are. I'm sure at the time of this recording, it is likely that someone will make a Freedom of Information request to find out that. But according to sources with knowledge of Wethersfield, only around 600 migrants are believed to have been on the site at any one time since first arrivals in July. This raises questions about whether value for money has been reached, which is why we need to know what the costs are, whether or not it's actually being through value for money in the end, as opposed to keeping them in hotels. And I think that's a question we should know. So the analysis also found failing to connect the modular portable buildings to the mains utilities such as water and electricity would mean the site would not represent value for money. So they haven't even so the analysis here, they're saying that they're not even connecting water and electricity to it. Now that's obviously a huge concern if this is true about the well-being of those on there, because obviously everyone needs electricity and water. I mean, you just need to ask what's happening in Gaza when it comes to water and electricity, guys. They don't need to tell you about that. MPs on the Home Affairs Select Committee plans to assess value for money at Wethersfield, the Eye understands. The committee has already met with the Home Secretary James Cleverly to express concerns over the value for money at the BB Stockholm barge, and have had to ask to see the full workings. It came after a letter to the committee's chair, Diana Johnson, last month from the Home Office Permanent Secretary, Sir Matthew Rodcliffe, which said that the barge moored in Dorset met value for money test. Okay. Another Home Office memo sent on February the 7th last year recommended that the reserve to the least of modular buildings provided up to 1,130 accommodation bed space from Portabing for a period of 12 months would come at a cost of up to £72 million. £72 million. A separate email on the 9th of February last year estimated the cost per person per night to house migrants in a preferable style unit at multiple sites would range from £115.24 to £133.07 compared to an estimate £142.67 hotel rate. So there's estimate costs here that they would be less. This is what the Home Office are estimating here. The same number of spaces in temporary accommodations at one larger site would cost from £149.63 to £167 per person per night, it was estimated. Ministers were warned again that the value for money case is marginal and that the risks to delivery are significant. A Home Office source would not reveal the department's latest estimates of costs for the temporary portable building accommodation, but said it was below the £113 per person per night at Wethersfield. Well, why not? If it is less, then what's the reason for not sharing it? The analysis also stated that newspapers, including The Sun and the Daily Mail, were likely to be critical if they perceived the accommodation to be of a high standard, and question why existing military barracks were not good enough for the UK military personnel, but not asylum seekers. Because UK military personnel is very different. A military soldier, your military personnel they're a little bit different to migrants. So A, they're not in the army. B, they're not in the army, and B, they've not come from, the vast majority of them have come and made treacherous journeys and perilous journeys. They're not being trained vigorously, psychologically and physical mindset of being a soldier in any way, shape or form. So I don't think it's a fair comparison to make between UK personnel and asylum seekers in any way, shape or form. Sorry, just don't accept that premise. The former Home Secretary Priti Patel told the Eye, "I've always been clear that Wethersfield is an unsuitable site for providing large-scale asylum accommodation centre." We've heard her criticise Wethersfield before. I'm pretty sure I've covered a story on it before. In our new plan for immigration, we have proposals to introduce detained sites and Greek-style reception centres to accommodate and process those who have entered the UK illegally to claim asylum. These boom worked when I left the Home Office as Home Secretary, alongside the measures in the Nationalities and Borders Act would have made a difference to tackling the impacts caused by illegal migration. I will keep pressuring the government to progress these plans, as they would be more effective than sites like Wethersfield. Stephen Kinnock, the MP Labour Shadow Minister for Immigration, said that none of these emergency accommodations would be needed had the Conservative government not lost control of the asylum system. There are 50,000 beds available across the asylum state, yet they let the backlog of cases reach 170,000, leaving the taxpayer with a bill of £8 million a day on emergency hotel accommodation. Labour has a plan to deal with the asylum cases more quickly to speed up with the removal of people who have no rights to be here by setting up a new returns unit within 1,000 enforcement officers. We will also establish an elite cross-border police team to smash the smuggling gangs and prevent people from making dangerous crossings. This doesn't sound like a lot from Labour, if I'm absolutely honest, guys. But at least it's a bit more realistic than Rwanda. This is the only thing I can give to it. Andrew Hall, Chairman of Wethersfield Airfield Scrutiny Committee, the WASC, a group of members who are from 13 parish councils, told the Eye that to learn that the Home Office were happy to sign off just for the leasing of Portabing at the cost of a night more than the average hotel comes at no surprise to us, the local communities. We have been treated appallingly for almost 2 years by 3 different government departments that have learned what the government states in public defers to what actually goes on behind closed doors. We imagine the true cost of the Wethersfield site is more likely to double than that publicly stated by the Home Office. When will this government learn? A Home Office spokesperson has said that the cost estimate quoted by the Eye are significantly overestimated, outdated and pre-contractual. Then show us the figures. What's the issue then? Show us the figures. If the Eye is wrong, then show the figures. There's nothing to hide. Then that's it. Then there's nothing to debate then. The pressure on this asylum system has continued to grow and requires us to look at a range of accommodation options which offer better value for the taxpayer money. Delivering accommodation on surplus military sites provide more orderly, suitable accommodation than those arriving in small boats, while reducing the use of hotels, which cost more than £8 million a day. Wethersfield has been mired in controversy since it opened as an asylum centre on the 12th of July last year. The previously I revealed that a 999 call was made from the base nearly every day last month on average, with nearly 30 ambulances called in as many days. A charity warned that some asylum seekers have tried to take their own lives at the Essex accommodation, that the mentally health problems were widespread. Meanwhile, the Home Office has said child asylum seekers to Wethersfield, despite a plea to councils not to move anyone claiming to be under 18 there. No migrant has yet moved to the RAF Scampton, which has been earmarked to hold up to 2,000 asylum seekers. Judicial reviews into the use of both sites as accommodations were heard at the High Court last year. A High Court has ruled against both Braintree and West Lindsey Council. Yeah, so I think that I've covered some of those stories in separate videos before, but I think those bits are important to highlight as well. There have been a huge amount of problems, guys. A huge amount of problems with Wethersfield, and it's just it's big, you know, and it's very frustrating to say the least. But they're obviously trying to claim that it's value for money. But the point of the article is obviously trying to tell them that you were warned it was going to cost more. And it just feels like that they announced it with the intention of saying, look, we're going to get them out the hotels because it's going to be cheaper. But is it cheaper? I mean, there are some numbers that they've shared, but they haven't shared everything. So perhaps a Freedom of Information request may get an answer to that. But these issues are not going away anytime soon, guys. But I don't know whether or not these RF bases, based on so many stories that we've covered, not just on my channel, but what the I and other sources have said, shows that perhaps this is not working here in these bases, and perhaps maybe they are better off in hotels. If it means it's being cheaper, then why? If it turns out that it's actually more expensive to put them in the RFF bases and hotels, are you comfortable paying more taxpayer money for them being locked up in an RF base rather than a hotel? So what do you guys think? What do you guys think of the fact that we may be paying more for them in a different accommodation than to ones in actual hotels? If that is the case, how does that make you feel? Let me know and share your thoughts about this in the comments section down below. If you found this video interesting, if you can hit the like button, we greatly appreciate it. Share it across social media and hit that bell notification icon so you'll be notified of when I upload another video. And if you want to financially support me in the work I do here, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member for as little as 99p, or joining me on Patreon or Rumble for exclusive content there as well. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.